Welcome to the Sharing Passion and Purpose podcast, a weekly podcast providing career and creative inspiration to help you build a purpose-filled life. If you're interested in tapping into your creative potential and building on your biggest and best resource, yourself, please join me on this path. I'm your host, Nancy Moore, and I want you to know that I'm on this journey with you. So let's get started. Hi, everyone. I have a statistic that I want to share with you today. And it's actually a staggering statistic to me, but according to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, over 70%, it actually says 74% of adults in the United States are overweight. And Amber Leah, who I am visiting with today, is somebody who is trying to help that number go down. She has written a book called Food Triggers, and she is certainly one who can write a book like this because she herself has lost 85 pounds. So listen to how busy Amber is. She is the mom of 4 boys. She and her husband have a production company, and she has written other books. And so if that isn't enough, she got to a point in her life and she shared with us that she suffers from autoimmune disease. And it was a point where it was flaring up, and she was just kind of at a point where she was going to have to even go and purchase new clothes, and she didn't want to purchase the bigger sizes. So she decided to figure something out. So she got it figured out. In addition to writing this book, she coaches clients and really helps other people break free from the cycle of reactionary eating. I will tell you, kind of toward the end of the episode, she gives some key tips to keep in mind when you want to get healthier. And one thing she always tells people to cut out, and I'm going to let her share what that is, but it's the key to feeling good and helping drive weight loss. So listen to what Amber has to share, and I hope that you enjoy our visit.
I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yes. Well, I am so happy to have you on the Sharing Passion and Purpose podcast. You're drinking water. Are you Look, I thought I've got to bring my water in here too. So, okay, let's get down to it because I love this book, and it's amazing. And
thank you.
It's interesting because in doing some research on you, I feel like you have a lot of triggers. So
I do. I'm a very much a recovering triggered person.
Yeah. Well, but you know what? So is everybody else, I feel like.
Right.
Yeah. So what I'd like you to do is kind of talk to people about your background a little bit. Yeah, and then I'm going to include on my end the different books that you have. But if you want to mention any of that, I love it.
Sure. Sounds good. Yeah. Okay. It's all part of my story. So.
Okay. Yeah. So go ahead and share that part, if you don't mind, about maybe your background and this book specifically, why you decided to write this book.
Okay. Sounds good. Well, whenever I was little, I imagined what my life would be. And probably a lot of people feel that way, right? Like we have these dreams of who we're going to be and what our lives are going to look like. And I felt like my life would be a lot like my mom's life and the lives of the other women that I knew in my world. And those women, they grew up and they got married and they had kids and they lived a fairly comfortable life and they had their ups and downs and their tragedies, certainly. But that's what I wanted. I wanted to get married and have kids and be a good mom. I just longed for that. And instead, I ended up teaching for about 10 years before I met my husband, which was great. I loved teaching. I loved my students, but I waited longer to get married than I thought I would and to be a mom, which is really what I always wanted to do. I know other people don't necessarily have that dream, but that was mine. And when it took me a little bit longer to get to the point where I got married and had kids, I thought, well, it's good. I'm more mature. I'll be a great mom. I have more experience in my life than my friends who got married and had kids when they were younger. I'm going to be an amazing mom. And then what happened was I had really difficult kids in that they were super sick and cried all night, and they had chronic reflux. My firstborn, he never slept. And that was kind of the start to when I actually started to have some of my issues, even just with food issues, because I started to find just comfort and relief in food. I was able to manage it fairly well still early on at that point, but motherhood just threw me for a loop. And eventually my husband moved us to a little town. He got a different job in a small town far away from our family and our friends. We were in a season of transition. And then I started to feel lost and a little bit like, okay, I love being a mom. I have 2 kids now, and I was pregnant with my third, which is what I always wanted, but I was lonely. And I had been in a career for 10 years, and then I was now home, and I thought I would really love it. And there were lots of aspects of it that I did appreciate and value, and I loved my kids with every fiber of my being. But I started to feel frustration that led to anger, caused, friction in my marriage, and certainly even with my kids. And I was snappy and easily irritated. And I just remember thinking, this is not the life I pictured. This wasn't the dream, when I was little, that this is the life I was going to be living. And along with that, I started eating more, right? Eating my feelings, mismanaged emotions, and eventually really had a moment where my husband went off to work and I shut the door behind him, and he was in his nice suit and tie, and I was in my pajamas for like the 3rd day in a row, could not even get out of those suckers. And I just was miserable. And I said, this is not how I'm supposed to be living my life. And I realized, though, right in that moment, it was like God spoke to me and was like, this is not about your kids or your life. This is about you and your perspective and your mindset. And I was like, yep, that's true. It's not about my circumstances. It's about how I am reacting to my circumstances instead of responding to them and operating from a place of gratitude. And so that began a turning point for me where I started to really apply gentle biblical parenting principles. I came a long way. I started looking practically at what were my biggest triggers in my parenting and just kind of knocking them out one by one so that I could be a much more gentle, calm, and loving parent. And then eventually began to just pass that on. I started a support group online for moms who struggle with anger and yelling. That led to a blog, which led to some parenting books, and the Triggers sort of brand began. Mm-hmm. But I never still fully got a handle on the food piece. And 3 years ago, I was having some autoimmune disease issues really flare up. I'd gained over 80 pounds over a 3 to 4 year period. I had a happy surprise baby number 4 in my early 40s. The things I used to do weren't working so well to get that weight off. And I realized again, Amber, you're still not really living life to the full. You need another turning point. And this time we got to really dial in on your eating behavior so that, you are really living your life in a blessed and empowered way and not subjugating yourself to illness and disease and misery because you're trying to find comfort in food. And so that was my turning point about 3 years ago. Autoimmune disease flaring up. My happy surprise baby had just celebrated his 2nd birthday. Couldn't blame it on the baby fat anymore. Had to look at reality and say, nope, this is still an uncontrolled issue in your life. You're being triggered by lots of issues. You're turning to food. And so needed to get a handle on it. So lost 85 pounds, released 85 pounds from my body, actually. Have kept it off now. This is like my 3rd year anniversary coming up, and just really wanting to pay that forward too and help people realize that whatever area in our lives we're struggling with, we don't have to stay stuck. And we don't have to shame ourselves. There's a lot of hope and a lot of help. And so that's really what I hope people get out of the things that I write about and share.
See, I love that perspective. I love your Christian perspective, but I also love that you give people hope. And you say different times during the book, I am guilty of this, or I understand this, I've lived this. And so you do come from that perspective of you having to lose the weight. And so how hard that can be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's so important to journey with people that know what you're going through. It's not always has to be that way. I mean, if you're an oncologist, you don't necessarily have to experience cancer to help a
Right.
cancer patient, right? But for me, the benefit of sharing my journey with others actually helps me continue on my
Mm-hmm.
health journey when I'm with other people. So it is cathartic in that way. But I also find a lot of joy in coming alongside people knowing that I have been in their shoes
Mm-hmm.
and that then I can help them. And so I became an independent certified health coach and have worked with thousands of people to help them get healthy. And I've just realized that really a lot of this health issues and the food issues are a root to many of the other struggles that we have. Because when your body's not well, it affects you emotionally, it affects your relationships, your confidence, your work life. And so if we can dial in this area in a really simple way and not get overwhelmed by it, then
Mm-hmm.
it's going to really give us a fruitful life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, this is such an amazing resource because you can't be everywhere, so your book is an
Right.
amazing resource. And I love
Thank you.
the names of the chapters. I feel like they're so relatable. And even specifically one about, I'm trying to remember what the title of it is, but it's being a couch potato or being on the
Yeah.
couch.
Yes.
And there, I can totally relate to that, in the evenings when you've worked all day and you're tired and you've put the kids to bed, or you kind of have a little bit of downtime, but you fall down on the couch, but you haven't worked out, maybe you haven't eaten the healthiest dinner, but it all contributes to maybe not the healthiest lifestyle. But I think that you specifically call attention to things that are relevant to people. But I want you to talk about that chapter and maybe how people can get off the couch.
Being a couch potato has really become a thing, especially right because of the pandemic.
Yes.
Okay. I mean,
yes.
right. We're at home more than we've ever been. Our lives were so disrupted, and now that's become a pattern. And so I talk a lot about unhealthy patterns and then healthy habits and that exchange throughout the book, because when we can identify whatever that trigger is, that unhealthy pattern, it helps us know how to move forward. And so when I think about the many people that I've talked with over the last few years as a result of just being, at home so much, and just the comfort that comes with getting to the end of your day, just sitting on the couch. And really it's this vicious cycle because you're kind of tired. So you sit on the couch and that makes you more tired and unmotivated. And it's really difficult to get out of that cycle.
Mm-hmm.
But what I've also found is that a lot of us who feel like couch potatoes, we're also feeling a little bit purposeless and aimless. And we don't know what to do with ourselves in a productive way. And so we just get caught and sucked into the couch. And also, it's a release, it's a comfort, it's a reward, but it's not helping us if that's a pattern that we're doing all the time. And so what I talked about is that, you just have to make a decision to finally break that pattern. So for me, I was absolutely a couch potato. The kids would go to bed, and my pattern was I would sit on the couch with a bowl of ice cream every night, and my husband would sit with me, and we would watch TV, or watch a movie, which there's nothing wrong with that in and of itself. But it was kind of, sucking the joy out of our lives. Like we weren't active. We weren't fulfilling our purpose. There were so many other things we could have been doing with that time. And not only that, but throughout the day, my kids would say, "Mom, come in the trampoline with us or come play soccer." And I was just too tired. I just didn't have the energy to get up and I wanted to be that fun mom. And I started to look to the future and think, okay, I know that I have to be active physically. I actually feel like a lot of us believe that we have to be engaged in high exercise to lose weight. I think exercise is really for other health benefits, cardiovascular support, muscle toning so that we don't naturally gain weight as we age. But nutrition is really what's going to impact our weight loss issues. But really, this is about optimal health and wellness. And so we need to be in motion in order to just build endorphins even. It affects us emotionally. So just making a decision. Okay, before I go on the couch, I am going to do just a quick 2-block walk after dinner, with my kids. Or, even just these little micro habits of movement can have a big impact. I'm not saying we should immediately go out and do an hour-long run, right? But what if we just did 2 10-minute, one like a yoga stretching session, after lunch. And then maybe after dinner or before dinner, we work on some core strengthening exercises or something like that. Or even just parking our car far away from the entrance and walking further and taking the stairs, just being mindful of little things we can do to start getting us out of that couch potato, lack of energy, lethargy place.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. It's interesting because when I read that part of the book, we tend to sit on the couch. I mean, I exercise, and that's part of my stress release, and I do exercise every day, but at night we do kind of tend to sit on the couch. And so we have a rolling, one of those foam rollers. And so instead of sitting there, I thought, okay, I'm doing this, so I will start foam rolling.
Awesome.
And, yeah.
Foam rolling's great.
And just doing that with the TV on. And
that's
so
perfect.
Anyway,
yeah. There's so many options. It's just a matter of, again, getting to the point where we make a decision to do something different today than we did yesterday.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. I know. Okay. So can you give us a couple of tips that people maybe, when they're thinking about, because here it's March, and, we're going into, I want to say swimsuit season, but, with summer. Yeah. So are there a couple of tips that maybe people should keep in mind over the next few months to kind of get a little healthier if they,
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I'm so glad you asked this, Nancy, because I think one of the reasons a lot of us stay stuck, one of the reasons I stayed stuck for several years is I felt kind of overwhelmed by, what to do and how. And it seemed like there was so much that I needed to do or try to figure out to get healthy that I didn't know where to start. And so I just didn't start. And even if I did start and then I wasn't real successful, or it seemed harder than it used to be, then I would quit. And so I think taking the emphasis off of the scale is really important. And to recognize that even a couple other health benefits, like just for 30 days, practice getting 8-ounce glasses of hydration in water. Just drinking water. It has a massive impact because our bodies don't store water. We have to drink enough every day. It's our organ function is impacted. Our skin is impacted, and it does impact weight loss as well. So even just the healthy habit of getting 8-ounce glasses of water, give or take, if we're working out a lot or we're very sweaty or we're higher elevation, you might even want to have more than that. But even that healthy habit alone can make a tremendous difference in how we feel. And then another one too is getting at least 7 hours of sleep at night. A lot of moms I talk to and dads say, well, we've got kids, we would tuck them in bed and give them a bedtime, but then we don't tuck ourselves. There's nobody to tuck me in, and so we have to tuck ourselves in, like put yourself to bed, people. But trying to protect at least 7 hours at night so that, it's going to affect your cognitive thinking. It does affect weight loss, but there's so many benefits to getting good sleep. And you'd be surprised if you just protected your sleep and started drinking more water, what a difference that would do. And I'm always going to tell people to cut out sugar. And I know that's a hard one for some people. And there are a lot of great plans and programs and things out there to help with that sort of thing. But I really believe that cutting out sugar is a key to feeling much better, as well as weight loss, but it will impact your health in dramatic ways. And we're addicted to sugar. Sugar's very addictive, and it's in everything. And we don't realize it. So that's another key tip. And then one last one is just learning to measure your portions again. I used to just open up a bag and reach in, right. And my kids did the same. And I wasn't looking at, a serving size is half a cup,
Right.
I was having like 3 of those, and so my kids even learned that, hey, if you have a bag of something, you've got a little bowl and you're putting a portion in that bowl. You're not just eating straight from the bag. So even something as simple as that can help us get back on track with our portion sizes.
That's a good point too, because you're teaching your kids that, so they will in turn later on when they're out in the world and have their own situation, they'll remember, it'd be better to measure out these the portions, because it is crazy. Sometimes the little bags of even, trail mix that you think is one portion or one serving size, it's like 3. I mean,
Right.
yeah.
It's an eye opener if you start to just look at the labels a little
Yes.
bit and
Yes.
even notice what those serving sizes are. It will be very shocking. We are not used to doing that. And unfortunately, well over 70% of Americans now are overweight or obese, and globally it's a problem. And so we are clearly eating too much. And
Mm-hmm.
so just being mindful, right? This is about just becoming a little bit more aware. Just
Mm-hmm.
becoming a little bit more mindful about some of these things can make a big difference.
Yes. Well, yeah, good point. I was just noticing as you were talking, it's like you're glowing and your skin is gorgeous. But I
Thank
have
you.
got to tell you, and you think very clearly, but all of that has to do with the food that you
Oh,
eat,
yeah, it
what you're putting
does.
in your
Yeah,
body. So it was
yeah,
interesting. At one point in the book, you talked about the, okay, eliminating processed foods and
yeah,
sugar, but
yes,
how effective that happened to be a
yeah.
good effect. In a few weeks, it was
Hmm.
psoriasis
Yes, that's
that
right. Mm,
disappeared. And you didn't
yeah,
even plan for that.
no.
So
Mm-mm.
it's interesting how everything's linked in your body. And when you start
Yeah.
eliminating those things,
Mm,
how much it
mm.
helps.
Yeah, it was shocking to me. I mean, I'll be honest. When my turning point came, I was having these, more and more flare ups with my psoriasis, among other things. But I literally was going to have to go back to the store and buy the next size up in jeans because I could not get in my jeans. And that was like the final straw where I was like, okay, I either need to make a change or buy a new wardrobe. And I didn't want to buy a new wardrobe again, another size bigger. I just was so mad at myself, which is a whole other process of working through, not shaming ourselves, not being
Mm-hmm.
mad at ourselves. That
Mm-hmm.
doesn't do any good. But I was frustrated, and I just said, okay, I need to lose weight. For me initially that's what it was about. I didn't realize how quickly getting rid of highly processed foods and sugar was going to impact me medically and in so many other areas of my health. And so the psoriasis, I'd been plagued with it probably off and on a good 5, 6 years. But it was so bad that, I mean, it was embarrassing. I didn't talk to people about it. But my scalp was like a lizard. It looked like a lizard scales, or scales from a snake. Sometimes it was weepy, it was just these open wounds even that would come. And then it was affecting my hearing. It would start to impact the inside of my ears because it's like a skin cell buildup that happens on the surface of your skin. It can be very painful and dry. And that was actually creating some hearing loss. And
Mm-hmm.
I just thought, I'm too young for this. And
Mm-hmm.
what happened was within 3 weeks, I noticed that it was lessening. And I
Mm-hmm.
didn't even clue in right away that it was because I had done this little detox, like a week-long detox. And sure enough, within maybe 3, 4 months, it was almost totally gone and it has never come back. And for that reason alone, I want people to have the hope that food is medicine. I always thought that food's a pleasure. It's all about a party in the mouth. And look, it can taste good. God wants us to enjoy good food, but that's not its sole purpose. It's
Mm-hmm.
meant to be fuel for our bodies, and it
Mm-hmm.
really is like medicine. And so that alone, for that health benefit, I would proclaim this from the rooftops because I want other people to feel better too.
I can tell. It's interesting. It's probably the teacher in you, you know, just continuing on.
Yeah.
This is the sharing passion and purpose, but I feel like you are sharing your passion so
Yeah.
well.
Thank
And
you.
this is the purpose that you have for your
Yeah.
life, is teaching
Yes.
and
Yeah.
empowering
Mm.
others. But I feel like
Yes.
you have given them, you're more than just talking about it, like you're giving people tools
I
to
hope
help
so.
them.
Yeah, I
So
want that to be true. Yeah, because, I just have so much empathy for what it feels like to feel, hopeless, frustrated, and stuck. I've
mhm.
so been there in different areas of my life. And I have found freedom from that. I am still a work in progress. I'll be the first person to say that in every area of my life. But I'm not where I was, and I don't want to keep that to myself. And that's
Mhm.
why I so appreciate you, Nancy, and this podcast, because you also are inspiring other people. And that is
Thank you.
an inevitable ripple effect when you're doing something that you care about, is hopefully that does have a positive impact on others. And so yeah, it's a good thing to pay it forward.
Yeah, good. Well, thank you for that compliment. That
Yeah,
is
you're
so sweet. I
welcome.
appreciate that. One thing I thought I haven't even turned to all the pages in the book that I marked, but one thing I'm going to say that I thought was really neat, the to, how you write kind of who the book is to. One of the things that you wrote to your clients, but you also say, and for everyone who longs to believe they can change their habits once and for all, let's live life to the full together.
Yeah.
And I love that.
Yeah.
I love that message. I love your message of hope.
Thank you.
It's awesome.
Yeah. I don't want to be alone in, this journey. I don't want to be alone. We're better together. We just are. I
Mm-hmm.
love people.
Mm-hmm.
And especially when it comes to food triggers, Nancy, I think it's such a delicate topic at times
Mm-hmm.
because we have so much, baggage and turmoil and trauma that often relates to our food issues. And I really want this to be a kind conversation. I want it to be hopeful, but I want it to be kind. And so that people will recognize, look, we're just going to journey together. I'm not your judge. There's nothing for you to feel shame over. This is an opportunity for us to maybe take some small but practical but very powerful steps forward in this issue.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well said. Great.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I might ask, because we have a couple minutes before I ask my last question, what was the hardest chapter to write and why?
It's a great question. I think one of the hardest chapters to write was probably in general about when just dealing with emotions, emotional eating,
Mm-hmm.
because it's really not about the food, Nancy.
Mm-hmm.
None of our health issues are really about the food specifically. They're really about the underlying reason we're turning to food
Mm-hmm.
in order to try to draw from it a purpose that it was never intended to fulfill.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And whenever we come from an emotional place, the thing about our emotions is that they are designed to serve us, but instead they often enslave us. We stuff our emotions. We don't feel what we feel all the way through. And so then we even, I think, subconsciously turn to food for just quick relief, because if we don't have some relief, it can be too much.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so we turn to the food. So it's this emotional mismanagement. And for me, my emotions were a gateway to gluttony.
Mm-hmm.
They were just this gateway to overeating. And I realized that for me, my emotional hunger, it was originating in my heart. So trying to feed my stomach was going to still leave me empty. I could fill my stomach as much as I wanted. I was still going to be empty at the end of the day because
Mm-hmm.
emotionally I wasn't processing that. And so I had to turn to God and just be like, okay, Lord, I've not processed my grief from my miscarriage 5 years ago. I've not processed the difficulty it was to move to that little town and not have any friends and to feel so alone. But I couldn't even have the time to process that well or I didn't take the time to because I had 3 kids, 4 and under, and I was overwhelmed. I'm in a place right now where I feel like I'm supposed to be doing something different with my life and I don't know what it is. And I feel a little aimless. And so I'm just turning to food. And so that was a hard chapter to write because I think a lot of people relate to that, but I had to go back to that place and those feelings myself again and recognize, Amber, have you really allowed yourself to just journal through that? To write out how you felt, to go on a walk and really just cry and even be vocal about it? Have you had time to really feel all of that and then just be like, okay, you know what? My peace, God, is not at the bottom of that ice cream carton. Amber, you got to stop looking for solutions inside that carton. They're not there.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to turn and put a better habit in place, like a positive affirmation that you are well and that everything that happens in your life is for your good, ultimately, that good things can come from any difficult situation, and that you are strong enough to manage through this and to thrive in spite of your losses. And I had to replace those messages in my head. I had to write out affirmations. I had to write out Bible verses that were meaningful to me. I had to spend more time in prayer. I had to say no to some other things to make space for me to have time to rest. and then just, to not feed the emotion, but to really deal with the root issues. And that's what I hope people will find the freedom to be able to do also as they work through the book.
Yeah. Okay. Very well said. I love all of that. Okay. So the last question that I ask people is, what are you passionate about right now?
Right now, I am also super passionate about filmmaking. My husband and I have a production company, and we kind of put things on hold for a while with COVID and all that. We're just getting back into it after a couple years, a little bit of a hiatus. And we just wrapped a movie in Colorado last week, and super excited about it. It's getting my creative brain going after a couple years of, writing non-fiction and really getting analytical and doing lots of research. I'm sort of, excited about getting creative again, and filmmaking and creating content also similarly that is a blessing to people and is hopeful and happy and highlights the best things of life, and looking to, do more of that in the coming months.
I love it. I've had goosebumps almost the whole time you've been talking.
Oh, Nancy.
It's been such a treat for me, and I appreciate your time so much. It's a pleasure to connect with you. I follow you on Instagram, but anyway, but I'll be connecting with you again soon. And this was fun. So thanks for visiting with me today.
Thank you, Nancy. It's been a pleasure. I appreciate you.
Okay, everybody, that's a wrap on this week's episode. I want to thank you for listening to the Sharing Passion and Purpose podcast. It means the world to me, and I'd love to connect with you. Please follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn at Sharing Passion and Purpose, and Twitter at Passion Sharing. Also, if you like this podcast, it would mean a lot to me for you to subscribe, rate, and review it. And as always, all my show notes will be available on my website, sharingpassionandpurpose.com.